Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome back, Mr. Glenn Beck.
Thank you very much.
We missed you.
Oh, stop it.
Do you feel refreshed, rejuvenated?
Not a bit, but I did, I strengthened my view on the border and why we need a wall and how every farmer and everything that we've ever heard growing up tells us we need a fence.
Oh. All right, Stu, what you got for us?
We are destroying our oceans with tons and tons of garbage, and we have the latest, and it's pretty disturbing.
Okay, Andrew.
Michael Bennett and Elizabeth Warren have a plan to stop lobbyists, and I have a better plan.
Nice.
Okay,
I hope you do
obviously.
better than them. I mean, it's not a high bar you're trying to clear there.
I love it. You're already trashing his plan. You've not even heard it yet. You've not even heard it yet. A lot to get into, but first we want to thank our sponsor, iTarget Pro. Glenn, did you do any shooting?
I bought a new handgun and I did lots of shooting, and I will tell you, I have a 50 caliber, and shooting that is expensive. And every time somebody was with a group and they were like, I want to shoot that, and it pop out another shell, and I'd be like, well, that's another $12. Hope that was fun. And I thought, is there a 50 caliber experience for iTarget Pro? Because that is shooting every day. That's what we do as a family. We go out and shoot, and there's at least 4 or 5 of us. That's a ton of money.
It really
ton
is.
of money. It's like going to Disney World without any of the audio animatronics. Just shooting things.
But iTarget Pro has the laser bullet instead.
Yes.
So you can dry fire, and you've got the laser bullet, and then you download the app, as you guys
With
can
your
see.
gun.
Yes, as you guys can see who are watching on television. You download it, and you're dry firing with your own personal gun, which is huge for trigger control, and you get to learn the pull. But it pays for itself, right? And as you were saying, ammunition costs
It'll
and
pay
range
for itself
fees.
in one trip to the range.
Yeah, it's huge. And as an extra bonus, you don't shoot holes in your living room furniture.
Good.
So
That's my problem.
yeah. So you're welcome,
Yeah.
Andrew.
Talk about the new gun on this show. Stu wouldn't let me talk about it, and because I was going to on radio, I was going to talk about this new gun that I almost bought, but then I found something else even better. And I told Stu about it, and he was like, don't say that, because then they'll figure it out and they'll take it away from us. But Remington, can I talk about it?
Wait.
Okay.
Free shipping right now and 10% off at itargetpro.com with promo code NEWS. That is itargetpro.com. There's nothing cooler than a laser bullet. All right, go ahead.
I should probably get to the news, and we'll talk about the cool gun later. Okay. So we're having all kinds of problems, and it is because we're being milquetoast about everything. Because we won't take a stand on what we know is true. I reread The Gods of the Cowpea Beheadings this vacation because I saw the insanity that was being talked about while I was on vacation about abortion, and it was crazy. It was like when Roe versus Wade looks like a mushy middle ground, we have gone way over the edge. Okay. So I'm out mending fences. What does it mean when you think of mending fences? So you say, hey, you guys, we all just need to mend some fences here. What does that mean to you?
Make up with one another.
I'm going to say rebuilding the fence.
Okay. You've never heard that? We have to mend fences?
Well, I've heard mending fences, yeah.
Yeah, and what does it usually mean?
It usually means you're making up with somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So I'm out mending fences because a 1,000-acre fence is really expensive for barbed wire, okay? So you don't, when it's broken, you don't go and put a whole new line in. You just cut a piece about this big, you take what's a Texas something or other, and you pull it together, and then you mend that with more barbed wire, and you twist it around, and so then you let it go, and that line is taut again, and you don't have to replace anything but about this much of barbed wire. mending fences. The reason why you do that is because your cattle get out and go to the other ranch next door and they eat somebody else's food, okay? So your neighbors are upset at each other because basically your cows are stealing from your neighbor. So mending fences is not about, hey, dude, I'm really sorry. You don't have to say anything. What you have to do is go over and put that barbed wire back together so your cow doesn't steal from the cows next door. So we get along perfectly well if we have mended our fences. So our stuff is on our side and your stuff is on your side and we're perfectly neighborly. You'd have a problem, I'm over with the potluck. If you have a problem and you're in the hospital and you need your fields cut, I'll cut the hay for you without a problem because we're neighbors. But we're neighbors that know on this side of the fence are my cows. On this side of the fence are your cows. We need to mend fences with Mexico. Our problems are stemming from us not mending fences. This healthcare is on our side. This education is on our side. We'll help you. You're in trouble. You need something. We are great neighbors. We'll help you anyway. This is our stuff. That's your stuff. You don't cross this fence and we're fine. The minute you cross my fence, we have a problem. And we're trying to expect civilization, who everybody knows, everybody's heard the mending fences thing. Everybody knows that, and everybody thinks it's about making up. No, it's about doing what you are supposed to do to keep your stuff on your side of the fence. We're not doing that. Mexico's not doing that. It's not hateful. When we say build a wall, you immediately think of a Berlin Wall. No, we just need to mend fences. That's it. How that fence appears, I had to put barbed wire in and I had to string electric fence on one side of my ranch as well. So, do I want an electric fence? No, but cows on both sides are very aggressive there. So I put the electric fence there. The electric fence, the cows only hit it once. They don't hit it a second time. They can hear the buzz. When they try to go for it the first time, they get a shock. The second time, they're like, oh, back up, back up, back up. Same thing. You got a fence, you pay a price if you cross it. Nobody crosses it anymore. Why aren't we listening to what we used to do as farmers? Why aren't we doing common sense things on our own borders?
Well, a group in New Mexico is trying to do that. Yeah, just a private group. What they had a GoFundMe a couple months ago and raised a bunch of money and now did a half-a-mile sector. And they say in New Mexico that sector, there's like 100 migrants who cross every night on what they call a typical day, and then $100,000 worth of illegal drugs that is trafficked in on a typical day again. So they thought that particular hole in the fencing was, it was very needed and necessary. And so they funded and did it.
This is how out of touch. Never in my lifetime would Americans have done that. Never in my lifetime. They would have never thought, we should do that. They would bitch about the government not doing it. And they would say, we need new people in Washington. We need to elect. People are so done with Washington. This is the Bubba Effect. This is Americans taking their own money and their own time and saying, screw you, Washington. We'll do it. We'll do it faster, better, and cheaper. This is the Bubba Effect. This is a great sign and a very bad sign for Washington.
Stu, you want to weigh in?
I think it's kind of a sign of where we are in this whole conversation, where you have one, there certainly are people who are actually anti-immigration. I mean, I very rarely run into them. I mean, I think people, generally speaking, like that we have immigration as long as it's legal. But they do exist. And on the other side, you have Nancy Pelosi saying that all walls or fences and walls are immoral It's like, well, they're not anything, right? Like it depends on how you apply them, right? Like there's been walls that have been, used all over in Israel, for example, is one where they have cut down on border crossings and terrorist attacks
death
in those areas
on
by
both
like
sides.
90% plus. I mean, I think that we should be, what Trump says in sort of his rhetoric, I think, can be applied if it was actually executed, which is like, look, we want to have the big wall. We want to have the big door in the wall. Like we want people to come, and we have to be encouraging that more. We spend a little bit too much time talking about lowering illegal immigration, and we should spend a little bit more time talking about increasing legal immigration, making it easier, making it so that people who are good people that want to come here and can add to our society don't have to ruin their lives to do it. But I mean, when it comes to the wall, it is a small piece of the puzzle. Remember, we still have, most of the people that are here are going to be coming through overstaying visas and other things. And I think at some level, this being like Donald Trump's main thing has made every person on the left say, that's the one thing we have to stop. And every person on the right saying, that's the only thing we need. And if we get it or not, it's not going to solve the problem either way. This is a much bigger conversation, and we've just summarized this. Like we've turned, a giant important issue into a tweet. It's like we've got 140 characters to finish this entire thing, figure this entire thing out, and I don't see how it's going to be.
We're doing that with everything. That's why I said when I saw this about the abortion stuff, I don't know anybody who is for abortion 5 minutes before. I don't think I've ever met anybody like that. That's what the politicians are talking about. Mm-hmm. I also don't know anybody who is so hardcore that they just want women to have back alley, abortions. Those are cartoons. Those are cartoons. Do some of those people exist? Yeah, some people hate all immigrants too and don't realize, where did you come from? Tonto? Because if your name's not Tonto or something like that, you're from someplace else. So these are the extremes, and we're only being presented with the extremes, and that's not where people are.
I really like what they're doing in Mexico, because I'll to back up a little bit, New Mexico. I live in parts of Mexico I like too. My first job, you wouldn't guess this based on how natty of a dresser I am, but my first job out of college was working on a ranch in Logan County, Oklahoma, and most of my job was literally erecting fences. And so the common sense thing that I immediately have when I think about fences is, how much do they cost? Now, I look at Trump's plan, and I think it costs way too much, and it's not worth the actual benefit to it. I also, to borrow a PJ O'Rourke line, I think it's like a $60 million subsidy to Mexican ladder companies. I don't think it would fix anything. I think it would add a lot. So for that reason, if I could push a magic button and a wall popped up, I'd be fine with it. But I think the money could be put better elsewhere. For that reason, I like what they're doing in New Mexico, because I don't want to spend my money on that. I don't think it's worth it. But if they want to put their money on it, and they're not taking anybody's land through eminent domain, which they're not, it's all private land, great. And they're also doing another thing, which is addressing a problem that they think the government's not doing, which I also think is a very healthy attitude. So I like that they're doing this.
It is.
I just think that this is a sign of screw the government. I have no faith in the government. I like, too, that Americans are fixing it. Americans think that they can do that. No other country in the world would they build a wall. A group of, Chinese maybe, a long time ago. But
even then it was a neighborhood association.
Right, it wasn't a neighborhood. It wasn't a group of people who just said, hey, we need this, let's do this. This is a very American thing to do. But it's not a American thing to do in my lifetime, because the argument always has been, that's what your tax dollars are for, and that's what they should be doing. Why aren't they doing it? Because this is a defensive, this is like, you know what? Group of my neighbors, we're going to start building tanks. You know what I mean?
I know a lot of libertarians.
I know.
Who might do that.
Back in a minute.
Come to my ranch.
Tell them you're coming before you show up.
Yeah, make sure you come. It's not free.
Before we move on to Stu's top story, I want to thank our sponsor, Cruise Through History. Glenn, this cruise
is unbelievable.
I can't believe it.
Unbelievable.
You're going to the coolest places.
Coolest places, because they're all the places that I want to see before they're all destroyed. I want to go to Venice. And Venice is the place where the Renaissance really was funded, and that the Enlightenment period. Venice. Then we're going to Athens. We'll see how a republic was formed. Then we're going to Jerusalem. We're also going to stop in, if you watch Game of Thrones, King's Landing. Croatia. Yeah. We're going to Dubrovnik or wherever that is. That one's just for fun. But Bill O'Reilly's coming on it, Stu's coming on it, David Barton's coming on it, Rabbi Lappin. We're taking, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can go. You can go for 5 days. I think you can go for 20 days. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's all, everything is paid for. You pay one price from airfare to, a glass of water. Everything is paid for.
Truly all-inclusive.
Truly all-inclusive.
You can go to comesailaway.com to, like he was saying, there's different packages. So pick your package, mark your calendars now, comesailaway.com, spring 2020. All right, Stu, you said that there is plastic in the ocean?
Yes, it's very scary. One of the greatest accomplishments, in marine exploration happened recently. It's pretty the deepest they've ever gone in the ocean, basically in a submarine. Really cool. But this is how it was covered pretty much everywhere. Here, I'll give you some of the headlines. You have, he went where no human had gone before. Our trash had already beaten him there. And you have,
is that a rock?
Plastic proliferates at the bottom of the world's deepest ocean trench. Which kind of looks like it was a shot from space. I don't know why the picture was like that. Deep sea diver travels further than any human finds plastic. Then you've got trash found littering ocean floor in deepest ever sub dive. America's break records with the deepest submarine dive ever finds plastic waste. It was like this over and over and over and over and over again. And it's a very good headline, right? It's kind of weird for me to want to boil down this incredible exploration
Just to put this into perspective. This is as difficult to get to the ocean floor, the bottom of the ocean, as it was to get to space. Imagine if it was and we found a bottle cap, and that was everything about the lunar landing.
That'd be a big deal, though. If we got to the lunar landing and there was a shopping cart there,
yeah, right.
That I would want to know.
Yes, but this one, you get it.
Right.
Get it, how it got there.
No, I don't, what is the point of this, right? Obviously the idea is to communicate that we're ruining the earth and that, we're dropping trash everywhere. First of all, this is not some deep scientific study of here's what we believe is at the bottom of the ocean, here's our evidence. It's just one guy who's driving around with a picture, if you kind of see the thing that we have pulled up here, it's just a guy, this is his view, and he says that he looked out there and he saw a plastic bag at one point, which we haven't seen that on video yet, but also a piece of plastic. Or at least something that could be plastic. He's not exactly sure what it is. Oddly, every single headline just says he found plastic, but here's the guy actually talking about what he found. Watch.
As I continued going along the bottom, cruising around, I did see what appeared to be one or two particles of man-made matter. I don't know if they were plastic or metal, but they definitely had sharp edges, and one of them had what looked like a letter on it, printed. So they were obvious contamination.
So he's not even saying it.
It
could be a tuna fish can top.
It could be anything, as he said.
And were they changing the digital film when he saw this stuff? I can't imagine that everything that happened on the lunar surface captured on film.
That's a great point.
Right.
They didn't capture this moment?
There's a moment in the video, and I don't think it was in that shot, but you see something that was very tiny and looked like it kind of looked a little bit like it had a pointy edge to it. So maybe that was what he was describing. But saying that he thinks he saw one or two particles of man-made material, which could be plastic or could be metal. This is completely different than the headlines of these stories.
Do you remember the first ever picture of the black hole? Just happened recently.
Yeah.
And we had our camera guy.
The donut in space, right?
The donut in space.
Recreated it.
It looked very much like a donut. Yeah. I got news for you. It's not a donut. It's not a donut.
I will say, too, it sent a couple of other bizarre sort of signals to me in that, I honestly, yes, we have trash in our oceans, and yes, we should have no trash in our oceans, but we've kind of brought civilization to this point. There's going to be a little bit of trash that falls in the ocean to keep billions of people alive. I would have thought there was tons of stuff down there. The fact that there's only 2 man-made particles in the deepest part of the ocean. Right,
kitchen sinks.
Exactly, and here's the thing, they're well, how can you believe this? They got to the deepest part of the ocean, and there were man-made particles. Well, anything that sinks is just going to keep going until it hits something. That's what metal would do, right? It just keeps going down down, 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 down. And if it falls on a higher point of the ground, that's kind of where it'll probably stop. And then if it's not, it's going to keep going to this part. Like the idea was going to go halfway down and just stop. Like that's not what metal does, right? Like it's going to be on the bottom at something.
I take your point. This is anecdotal. It is an anecdotal thing. However, I do want to be the wet blanket that points out that there are bad things happening. So the rate of species extinctions increased dramatically.
No.
That's a five.
Do you even know how many species there are? I can handle this one. This is so little league baseball here. I can handle this one. Do you know how many species there are?
48.
You're right.
That's right. How did you know that?
Nobody knows how many species. There are tens of thousands of species we don't even know of.
But the rate at which we're determining extinction is increasing. So it used to be that we saw about 5 per year that were going extinct. Now it's like 1,000. So our ability to determine how many are going away forever is increasing. And then in terms of plastic, which is I think the main thing we're talking about, we estimate that there's between 4 million metric tons and 12 million metric tons a year. Now most of that's not America. Most of that's China, Indonesia, and Vietnam and Southeast Asia. So I don't think like a straw ban is going to affect that. But we are putting a ton of plastic in the ocean, and that is a bad thing.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with that story, right? Like I mean, both of your points are good, points, but they're not. They have nothing to do with this. And like, I was just very annoyed at the coverage of it. Like they make it out to be, because this is what happens. Like there is a big floating garbage barge in the middle of the ocean. Well, there's not, like the numbers you're talking about, I don't have them off the top of my head, but I assume you're being accurate with those. But like people try to say, well, there's a giant pile of garbage somewhere. One of the big reasons why we had the scare when it came to, dumps in the United States and wasteland was because the one barge that went around the East Coast back in the day couldn't find a place to dump it off. And we're like, we're out of landfill space. And people panicked over landfill space. Well, we have plenty of space for landfills. These things these like little anecdotal stories like grow into real things. And the straw ban is a great example of it as well. I remember when I was a kid and I believed it forever, you have to break up your little 6-pack things because they might get on the neck of like some pigeon or
Are you telling me that's wrong?
Oh, I mean.
I still do it.
I know. It's totally in my head to do it from when I was a kid.
I'm proud to say I don't even know what it is.
Oh, you don't?
No.
So when I was in school, they would tell me when you have a 6-pack of Coke, you cut them up. It'll get caught over a turtle or a seagull's neck.
Yeah, the plastic rings.
And then they'll die or something. And like, how many times has that actually happened? I'm sure it has, but like the idea that is something that a human being should be doing all the time.
What I love is the fact that with such passion, they will tell you to cut those things up so a turtle won't strangle. But with the same amount of passion, they will tell you these aren't children in the womb.
Yeah.
These aren't children. You're not killing children. Wait, in 5 minutes, that's going to be a baby.
But let me give you this part. This is my favorite part of the story. So the guy gets down to the bottom of the ocean. He's talking about the serene environment. He's looking around. He notices this plastic thing, but he's also very positive. This is an amazing journey, right? You sit down there, it's quiet everywhere. Little weird species have never been seen before are floating by. And he says he sits back and he just decides he's just going to take it all in and he enjoys it. And he sits down and he has lunch. I swear to you, a tuna fish sandwich. What the hell brings a tuna fish sandwich to this environment? I mean, you're going to eat all the fish at the top and you're just going to sit here and complain about plastic at the bottom? Stop eating the fish at the top. Oh, it was beautiful. We took a bunch of the fish and we just crushed them into little pieces and then doused them in mayonnaise. It was wonderful. I thought it was so weirdly disconnected from this journey.
I would have paid money to be the guy in the sub with him that was just behind him when he was just like, going to take all this in, and then you just wait for a minute and you just go, ah!
Okay, back in a minute.
Jump out of your skin. You guys seen Fleabag?
Glenn, before we go into overtime, I know that there was some really devastating storms over in Ohio.
Horrible storms last night in Ohio. Dayton was hit particularly hard, but this has happened from Oklahoma all the way up. And Mercury One is on the ground with their partners right now, and we could really use your help. Just go to mercury1.org and help with the disaster relief fund if you want to help the neighbors. They are already on the ground. They were there early this morning, and it's an amazing effort. And if you want to be a part of it, just go to mercury1.org.
Or you could help pull plastic off the bottom of the ocean. That's another option.
I mean, if it's me, I'm going Mercury One.
I'm coming in with all those things for the 6-pack, and I'm not cutting them.
How dare you.
Animal hater. Why do you hate the seagulls?
Yeah, well, if you lived around seagulls, you'd know.
Oh, yeah.